All right, sweet. It's about 10:30. So I just need to set up one thing on here to share with you guys during the live stream so that then we'll be prepared. All right, sweet. It's about 10:30. So I just need to set up one thing on here to share with you guys during the live stream so that then we'll be prepared. I just All right, well, looks like there was no good result of the clip out there that I wanted to share with you guys about the topics. So, anyways, let's just get into the discussion then, as soon as I get a can of Coke. Okay, so the real big question here today is, according to that Christmas movie in the Santa Claus trilogy, we have the third film, the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, which features the villain in that movie of Jack Frost, played by Martin Short. Now, for those of you who already know about the whole story of the movie and from how far that Tim Allen, who played the Santa Claus, has come from being a businessman with a toy company to starting to slip into the areas of becoming Santa and according to his ex-wife becoming like, a better man and such like that. While as in this film, I love how in the escape clause that when he actually goes back in time through the escape snow globe and he goes back into what he was before, staying as a businessman before any of that Santa Claus stuff happened to him, like it never happened at all. And then he became kind of like, self-centered. He was rich. He had a sports car. He had all this great fancy stuff and kind of didn't give a damn about his family. So, yes, so we kind of get the idea of this story. It's Santa Claus seeing the pressures of being Santa when the in-laws come of his now wife, the Mrs. Claus. And so, hey, Scott, you made it on the live stream. Hey, great to see you. Um, anyways, if you're still working right now, I sure hope that you don't get in trouble if you stay on here for too long or whatever. But anyway, thanks for coming. Um, thanks for coming after all. So, we all know about what the Santa Claus 3 The Escape Clause is about, or at least for those of you who have seen it. For those of you who haven't, I had just explained it about Santa facing the pressures of not only doing his Santa busy season at the North Pole, with his list, checking it twice, kind of supervising, going around seeing how the workshop and the elves are doing, but also handling and managing the in-laws of his now wife, the Mrs. Claus, when they come into the North Pole. And how they obviously don't know about Santa or about the magic. Um, but eventually they do as the story progresses. And as well as his own wife giving birth when she was just near delivery. So, hmm I can see how that would be very, very pressuring. And at the same time, handling a villain who's kind of gone like another legendary figure who's kind of the villain of the story because he's like out of control with like freezing stuff all around the world. Only got a 10-minute break, so I thought I'd join in a bit. Oh, well, awesome. Glad you can still come in. Gonna check out who's naughty or nice. Exactly, man, exactly. So, so about Jack Frost being the villain, the main antagonist of this movie, we can definitely tell he is the bad guy. But have you guys really ever considered, back to this question, Curtis, the head elf in this film, when before in the Santa Claus 2, he was the number 2 elf, the keeper of the handbook. Um, right under elf number 1, that was Bernard, which was in a way also kind of like Santa's advisor at the North Pole of the workshop. So we didn't see Bernard in the third film. And I think it was because it was rumored that maybe it was his time that he retired, or um or yeah, I think that's just how they ended it. But in real life, the actor had some kind of a scheduling conflict, so he was not able to do the project. I also thought that it was because of his surgery that he had in real life for his hip or one of his legs. Because if you noticed in the second film, when you see some scenes of Bernard, like, trying to run with the elves to get after the toy Santa, you can tell that he was kind of limping a bit. So I think he was having some body problems. So anyways, in this third film, Bernard was not in it. Curtis stepped up as number 1 head elf advisor to Santa. And, well, is he considered a hero of the story, like a protagonist, or is he kind of a bad guy? Well, the reason why I ask you this is because if we do think about it, I would play the scene, but there was not a good clip on YouTube for me to share with you guys of the scene that I'm trying to talk about. So, uh, anyways, there was a scene in this third film where Jack Frost was doing his like probational work around the North Pole, helping things out with Santa when he was transforming the outside of the North Pole to make it look like an illusion of Canada to prepare for the in-laws' arrival when they had no knowledge of Santa or the magic of being in the North Pole. So when he was doing his work around there and strolling around the trees that were nice and frosted that Mrs. Claus was looking at, well, he sat down, and then all of a sudden, his supervisor at the time, Curtis, was also his boss. So he was coming in, probably supervising his work, checking in to see how he was doing, and then they were kind of talking for a little while, and then um, Curtis mentioned to him about the escape clause. And then Jack seemed really, really interested in that because, after all, Jack still being the main antagonist or villain of the story, he wants to try to find in a way to put like Santa out of a job, probably as like revenge and to prove that, Jack can do things right and that Santa at times can mess up. So, oh, sorry, all that talking can make me thirsty. But anyways, there was a moment there when Jack and Curtis were talking, and Curtis was explaining to him about the escape clause and even told him and kind of showed him with like symbolically how the escape clause worked. And he even told Jack himself, I'm sorry, I can't tell you, sir. It's highly classified. So then if it's highly classified, why did you like show that to Jack? You just like gave Jack, the villain of the story, the whole idea. And so after Jack, throughout the story, finally executes that part of his plan to sneak out Santa's magical snow globe of the escape clause snow globe and then trick him into going back and then stealing his job. It's like Curtis, after you telling and showing him all of that of like how it works and giving him an idea of where it is, like it could be in the Hall of Snow Globes, it can be in Santa's office or wherever, and then he just happened to listen in and find out where it was. And then it's like, Curtis, all of this seems to be coming back to you. And so I'm thinking you're kind of a bad guy in this one. It's like, is there some kind of a grudge or problem you had with Santa all this time besides Santa getting on your nerves, retaliating against, like, your advices? Because that is completely understandable from his point of view or from your point of view. But at the same time, it still gives you no right to like jeopardize like Santa's position in his clause that he's living in right now by giving him a chance to be tricked and escaping it. So again, guys, do you still think that Curtis is a hero or a villain or a bad guy in this movie? Not just Jack Frost, I mean. We all know Jack Frost is still the main antagonist. That's what we were all shown as kids when we watched it. So, after Curtis giving Jack Frost all of that information, pretty much to sum up, after Curtis gave Jack all of that information about the escape clause, how it worked, showed him how it was done, and then giving Jack, who's a villain mind, the twisty, sneaky plot and idea to trick Santa into going back, stealing his job, and then throwing him back to his old life to what he was before without the existence of being Santa. Um, because we all know that part was on Jack. But then maybe that all wouldn't have happened if Jack Frost didn't know about that, and if Curtis just kept saying that's classified and then just kept his mouth shut. It's like, did he had to show him that scene where he's like, Santa's snow globe. Santa, I wish I'd never been Santa at all. It's like, wow. Come on, man. Now you're really making it obvious and too easy for him. So, even though as an elf, I mean, Curtis is over 900 years old. I mean, he was 900 years old in the second film. Now, in this third film, obviously, he's over 900 years old. So it's like all that time living and rarely making any mistakes in all of his lifetime. You would think he would be kind of like smarter and wise enough to not give Jack that info that could have changed the entire everything of the North Pole. I mean, because he knew that Jack Frost was a criminal. He knew what he was capable of. He knew what kind of a twisted, like, sneaky mind, sneaky, chilly mind that he had. So, in a way, I don't believe that Curtis is. If you do ask me, after analyzing all of this, in my opinion, I don't know what your guys' opinion is, which is totally fine, but I have to say, Curtis is not a villain in this movie. He just made, um, I think what Scott Applier just commented in here, I totally have to agree with that. He just made a bad decision. Um, and I wouldn't say he was a hero either. I don't think Curtis in this one was a villain or a hero. He was kind of like lying in between, kind of like more on the neutral side now, not trying to save Scott Calvin in a way. Um, Still kind of like guiding him, but not as much as he did in the second movie. Like in the second movie, he was kind of a little more caring about Scott Calvin. Um, so in this one, about the whole Jack Frost and Curtis situation, Curtis just made like a bad decision where it's like, it was just at a time where he was probably having a huge brain fart, it or he just got so imitated or intimidated and pressured by Jack when Jack kept on telling him stuff like, "Oh, you poor thing. Santa must not appreciate you very much to be his number one elf." Um, when they were both just having their like chats like they're off the clock. It's like what buddies would say to everybody, "Oh, I hate work," or sometimes it's so pressuring and blah blah blah. Sure, your brain kind of shuts off and goes down a little bit lazy for a little while because that's called venting. So maybe in that moment, Curtis was doing his own kind of venting, if you will. But at the same time, that was a very risky move that unfortunately paid off and resulted in something bad for Scott Calvin and the North Pole and his family when, he went back through the time portal. So, in a way, back to the question, Curtis, a hero or villain? Again, I would say none, but he did make like a betrayal kind of move by making um the mistaken bad decision there of accidentally revealing the info to Jack. So he's not a villain, in my opinion. Because if he was a real villain of this movie, he would be working with Jack Frost to take over the North Pole, causing all the mayhem to go wrong. But in the time portal, in that dimension, when Jack Frost was Santa Claus at the North Pole and he turned it into a theme park, and Scott Calvin was back at his old life and he was going there to fix it, Curtis unfortunately was stuck with working with Jack because he was still the head elf of the place who had to work under Jack, serve him, and if you like, serve him as an advisor, if you will, or just another employee to his North Pole theme park. So it's like, okay, he was just taking orders, which I guess is what a lot of those or all of those elves were doing. And all of them obviously looked miserable or unhappy because they kind of had an idea that it was wrong and that it was, it's just not how the North Pole was supposed to be. So I think that does wrap it up for this live stream tonight. It was not a long one, you guys. It was probably only about half hour, 20 minutes or so. I try to make this one go pretty quick because this is not the end for the year. I have a couple more live streams coming your way with one or two more upload videos coming next week as well. So let's see. Today is Friday. I have on Sunday, I have well, earlier this afternoon, guys, if you go onto my channel and if you go onto my community tab, you will see the recent post that I've made. It's a text explanation describing the next release dates for my videos or live streams. So please go onto my posts and look at that for more information. Thank you guys for coming to this discussion live stream tonight of the Santa Claus 3, the Escape Clause, Curtis, a hero or villain? So, again, guys, happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to press that like button whenever you can. And whenever you can, comment down below on this live stream video and put your thoughts or maybe your answer or response to this whole question or discussion. So thank you guys for coming. For those of you who were here, thank you, Scott Applier. I'm so glad that you can make it here tonight. And we'll see you guys on the next one.